Arsenal extend their gap at the top to 7 points after a 0-0 draw against Forest, as Manchester City fell to a rejuvenated Man United in the derby 2-0, and Aston Villa lost at home to Everton. What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Full 90. It is time for Week 23 Premier League predictions. We've officially crossed over 150 members over on the Patreon, so as a thank you, I am doing another $100 giveaway, and you could win it. You don't have to wait weeks or months. All you have to do is join the Patreon, and I'll pick a winner on the 1st of February, so in just over a week's time. So if you're already part of the Patreon, you're entered, and if you join between now and February, you'll be entered in for a chance to win $100, but more about the Patreon later. Last week, we hit over 1,000 likes on the Premier League episode, so if we could do that again today, that would be awesome. Once you click like, there is a little football animation that flies over the like button, and if you have the option, please do hype the video down below as well. I correctly predicted a Sunderland win on the channel. That rarely happens. I don't often predict Sunderland to win, but we got it right. But other than that, it was a tricky week. Probably one of my worst weeks for the Premier League predictions, for full transparency. But that doesn't last long because we are back for more today. So make sure you leave your predictions down in the comments below, and let's get kicked off in the London Stadium. So the first game, it is between West Ham up against Sunderland. Both teams have very, very similar recent records. Obviously, Sunderland started the season much, much better, hence their higher league position. But they were both winless in 5 games and have since qualified through their Carabao Cup tie after drawing in regular time and winning their last game in the Premier League 2-1. Sunderland beating a lackluster Crystal Palace at the Stadium of Light 2-1. And arguably more impressively, West Ham beating Tottenham Hotspur away from home 2-1 with a late Callum Wilson winner. So this is going to be quite a tricky game to predict, in my opinion. If I had to predict a winner, I would just have to go with Sunderland, but I think there's a lot that West Ham can take from that win against Tottenham Hotspur. And Sunderland, we know they don't travel particularly well. They tend to get their points at home where they are very difficult to beat. Obviously, Sunderland beat West Ham in the reverse fixture on the opening day, but this one I think is going to be a little bit trickier, and maybe after that win against Tottenham, there are some murmurings of belief between the West Ham faithful, the players, the manager, and maybe they think they could probably win this game. So I'm going to sit on the fence and say a 1-1 draw, but the tip is going to be both teams to score at odds of 1.8. After this, we travel to Turf Moor for Burnley up against the aforementioned Tottenham Hotspur. Now, Burnley, despite, let's be honest, being absolutely battered by Liverpool, they managed to get a point at Anfield, which is an absolutely massive result. Burnley are not doing well this season. They look destined to go down, and maybe they think they could potentially get a win here, but they're also not playing Tottenham at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, where they tend to perform not as well. Tottenham, on the other hand, actually turned up in the Champions League. They beat Borussia Dortmund 2-0. I know Dortmund had a relatively early red card. It was in the first half, but even 11 v 11, Tottenham were the better side. And it's very rare that you can say that Tottenham actually having a very good Champions League season, all other things considered. On top of that, Tottenham have won their last 5 matches against Burnley. Burnley aren't very good, and Spurs really need a win. So I'm going to go for a 2-1 Tottenham win. I thought about a 2-0, but let's be honest, I think Burnley will still fancy their chances, and Tottenham aren't the best. But the tip is still going to be Tottenham to win, because the odds are 2.05. That is absolutely incredible. Tottenham should be beating Burnley. Home, away, it shouldn't matter. It doesn't really matter what state they're in. I know Burnley have picked up points against Liverpool and United. Tottenham should win this, and given that Burnley have picked up recent points against good sides, Tottenham will know that and will do even better to try and get the win, in my opinion. So I think they do go on and get the win. Real quick, I mentioned earlier about the Patreon. If you want access to exclusive members, tips, and accumulators, and a shout out in every single video, like everyone flashing up on your screen right now, all you've got to do is click the top link in the description. As well as all that, you also get access to the $100 giveaway that I'm doing up until February the 1st, and League Un predictions. I only release them over on Patreon. I don't post them on YouTube or do a video or anything like that. And over the last couple of weeks, League Un has been my best performing league. Every time I've posted a League Un predictions list over on Patreon, we've had at least one perfect score, majority of correct tips, and that is in amongst other leagues where things have been pretty seemingly tricky to predict. So if you want the shout outs, you want direct messaging access to me, exclusive tips and accumulators, giveaways, League Un predictions, then click the Patreon link in the description. And as I've said to you before, the more you guys support the Patreon, the more giveaways I can go ahead and do. We've already had multiple multiple winners this season, and I'd love to do more and more. So thank you so much for the support on the Patreon and on the channel. But now let's get back, and we head to Craven Cottage for Fulham up against Brighton. This I found to be a tricky one to predict. If we go back to the previous game week, Brighton, Monday Night Football, drew 1-1 with Bournemouth thanks to a very late, incredible overhead kick goal. Fulham, on the other hand, lost to Leeds 1-0, again, thanks to a late goal. So if the late goals were removed, Brighton would have lost, Fulham would have drawn, and things would have seemed perhaps different. But either way, I do want to say, I watched a pretty decent, I would say about an hour of that Brighton-Bournemouth game, and I really enjoyed it. I just think this season, with the Premier League, it's very much been the big teams against the smaller teams, it seems. The big teams have to play against a very low block, and they find it difficult to break the teams down and everything like that, and it makes for a bit of a rubbishy game to watch on the eye. But Brighton and Bournemouth, they were two teams going at it, end to end, both trying to attack, and it was a good game to watch, even though it was only a 1-1 draw. So I want to see more of that in the Premier League, and I think we could see more of that at Craven Cottage with Fulham up against Brighton. Brighton have been drawing a lot of games. Fulham, I do make them home favourites here. They've had some very good results recently. They're in decent form, and if I had to pick a winner, I'd go with Fulham. But I just have a bit of a gut feeling that this one's going to be a draw. Now, both teams have scored in their last 3 meetings with each other, and also in 4 out of 5 of both of their last games. So I think both teams to score is likely. So I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw, and the tip is both teams to score at odds of 1.61. After this, we travel to the Etihad Stadium for Manchester City up against Wolves. Now, Man City, what a crazy week it has been for them. They were completely outplayed, battered. I think City's biggest XG loss ever in recent years against Man United. They ended up losing 2-0. It could have been more. And then they travel to the Arctic Circle to play Bodo Glimt in the Champions League and get battered again. 3-1 to Bodo Glimt. They were deserved winners in that game. Thankfully, in the Champions League video, I just tipped both teams to score because that's how little I trusted that Man City side. And they were handsomely beaten. This game is the perfect return after poor results like that. Losing those 2 games, drawing 3 games in the league before that. This is where Man City bounced back with a win. On the one hand, I'm thinking they should go and win 5-0. On the other, I think they're susceptible to conceding. Wolves are, rejuvenated recently. And I thought maybe even just a low-key Man City 1-0 win, just get the 3 points and put the pressure on Arsenal going on into their game against Manchester United. Ultimately, I have settled with a high-scoring game, and I'll tell you why. I think Wolves will think they can get something from Man City, and ultimately, I think that's going to be the end of their game. Because I think if they go into the game thinking we don't have a chance, let's put 12 men behind the ball, then maybe they can park the bus and counter. Because City, against the low block, unlike but maybe in years gone by where they can break through that and score, they've been struggling to score goals. And then they are susceptible to counter-attacking goals. Look at Manchester United and Bodo Glimt. Pretty much all of the goals were breakaway goals. Man City with higher possession, can't break the side down, they fumble it, and then they get scored on the counter. So I think if Wolves did what they did against the likes of Arsenal and really parked the bus and were just defensively resolute and strong, they could get something from this game. However, I think because Man City have been poor lately, Wolves might get a little bit big for their britches, think they can beat them, and that will ultimately allow Man City a bit of extra space going forward and allow them to score the goals they need to win. So I think if Man City were winning, Wolves would actually have a better chance to win this game. But I think that extra bit of belief will be the undoing of Wolves. So I'm going to go for a 3-1 win to Manchester City. The tip is over 2.5 goals at 1.4. I don't know. Like I said, I think if Wolves need to do is park the bus and go for a 1-0 smash and grab. Like they beat, I think there was a 1-1 draw with Man City actually way back in, I think it was maybe summer of 2018, 19, something like that. It was a 1-1 draw. I mean, if VAR was in, then that would not have been a 1-1 draw. It would have been a 1-0 loss because the goal went in off of... can't remember who it was, hand, I believe. He actually went for a header, smacked his hand and went in, no VAR, it was given, and it was, I think, a 1-1 draw. But yeah, I think Wolves will probably end up losing this one 3-1 to Manchester City. After this, we travel to the Vitality Stadium for Bournemouth up against Liverpool. Now, if there's a team that Liverpool don't want to play, obviously Manchester City is one of them with the best record against Bournemouth, but Liverpool is probably the next team. Liverpool have won 18 out of 21 meetings with Bournemouth since they first got promoted to the Premier League in 2014. And after a strong performance against Marseille in the Champions League, winning 3-0, I do think Liverpool should be able to get the win here. Bournemouth, their goal against Brighton in the end came from a penalty. They did have other chances. Like I said, it was a great game to watch. But I just think Liverpool are sort of ticking at the moment. They got, like I said, a brilliant win against the Marseille side. I thought that would be much less one-sided than it was. So I think they're going to go here and get the win. I'm going to go for a 2-1 win. And I really do like the odds of Liverpool to win at 1.9. Like I said, they have a great record against Bournemouth. And I don't see them coming unstuck here. Bournemouth obviously floundering a little bit. No Semenyo. I think obviously they're not going to get relegated, but they are a bottom half of the Premier League side, I would say, and Liverpool are not. So I'm going to go for a Liverpool win. After this, we go slightly further north, but not too far, to the G-Tech Community Stadium for Brentford up against Nottingham Forest. Forest play Braga in the Europa League tonight, and Brentford have been very, very strong at home. I think this is a great opportunity for Brentford to get 3 more points in a very, very congested Premier League side. Nottingham Forest, yes, they'll be looking over their shoulder with regards to teams behind them trying to climb out of the relegation zone and stuff like that, but I just think this game comes at the wrong time for Nottingham Forest, so I'm going to go for a Brentford 2-0 win. The tip is Brentford to win at odds of 1.95. Now, after this, we travel to Selhurst Park for Crystal Palace up against Chelsea. I mean, we're talking about crazy records, the likes of Liverpool, Bournemouth, Man City, Bournemouth. Crystal Palace, Chelsea is so one-sided. Crystal Palace have won 0 of their last 17 games against Chelsea. They had 3 draws. The most recent meetings were 3 draws. But before that, 14 straight losses. That is incredible. It's not like, you know, they played a few games in the last couple of years, then had a 20-year break because they were in different leagues and it was different teams. You know, Palace have been in the Premier League for a while and they never beat Chelsea. Literally never. Like I said, the last 2 have been draws, and had Palace been maybe at full strength or just had a bit more energy, then maybe this could be another draw. But Chelsea, they managed to spare their blushes and get the 3 points against Paphos with the 1-0 win. I think they will be able to beat Palace here, so I'm going to go for a 2-1 win. But in case we do see a 1-1 draw, and it is another stalemate, the tip is going to be very conservative. Chelsea double chance and over 1.5 goals at odds of 1.53. But like I said, Palace haven't won any of their last 17 games against Chelsea. That is a damning statement for a Palace side who are probably in their worst point than they've been in for the last few years. So I think Chelsea should be able to get the win here. After this, we travel to St James's Park for an absolute cracker. It's Newcastle up against Aston Villa. Now, first of all, Aston Villa haven't won at St James's Park in over 20 years. It's a very, very hard place to go. And also, these two teams, when they meet, generally speaking, it's the home team that comes out on top. Since Villa last won at St James's Park, I think it was in 2005, since then, there's only been 3 away victories in this matchup. Obviously, all 3 Newcastle. So 3 away, most of them are home wins with the odd draw thrown in there. Because St James's Park is a fortress, Villa Park is a fortress, and I think we'll see a similar narrative here. Newcastle have an extra day's rest after battering PSV Eindhoven at home 3-0. Villa have to travel away to play Fenerbahce in the Europa League, which I think is going to be a very tricky game for them. So I just think this is perfect for Newcastle. I'm going to say it'll be a Newcastle 1-0 win. And the tip is Newcastle to win at odds of 1.9. Like I said, the away team just doesn't win this fixture. And when it's Villa, it's been over 20 years. So I think Newcastle get the win here. Now after this, it is the game of the week. It's Arsenal up against Manchester United. Arsenal, they are the best team in the world right now. It's incredible. They're top of the Champions League. They're going to finish top of the Champions League, and they're going to finish top of the Champions League with 8 out of 8 wins. They're obviously going to beat Kairat Almaty on the last day, even if they play the reserves. But still, Arsenal look absolutely incredible. Man United, obviously, under Michael Carrick, have an incredible unbeaten record. Michael Carrick has beaten Arteta as Manchester United manager already. I think he beat Pep Guardiola before. He drew with Thomas Tuchel, and I can't remember the other result, but he's undefeated as Manchester United manager across his 2 stints currently. But Arsenal are unbeaten against Man United in their last 6 league meetings, and City will obviously likely have closed the gap to 4 points by this point. They play Wolves. They have to win that game, and I think they will. And whilst Arsenal have failed to capitalise on City dropping points over the last few weeks, I also therefore think now that this week City won't drop points, Arsenal, I expect them to keep them at arm's length, 7 points adrift by winning this game. So it'll be close, and I think that Man United will score. So the tip is not going to be in the result market. I'm going to say Arsenal will win 2-1. Their home record is absolutely incredible, but the tip is going to be both teams to score at 1.8. I think Man United, especially against the good teams, the better teams, look like one of the best counter-attacking teams in the league. The likes of Mbeumo, Cunha, Bruno Fernandes as well, just all of them look so good and so lethal going forward. I think they'll be able to score. And Arsenal, they're not keeping clean sheets like they used to. They're letting in the odd goal, and ultimately it doesn't matter because they're going on to win the games anyway. I know they had 2 goalless draws in the league, but Man United will give them a good game. So I'm going 2-1. The tip is both teams to score at 1.8. And finally, it's Monday Night Football. It is Everton up against Leeds at the Hill Dickinson Stadium. This I find to be a very tricky one to predict. Both Leeds and Everton getting 1-0 wins in the previous game week. Leeds, a late dramatic winner. Everton, a ridiculously good result away at Villa Park. I don't know how to predict this one, in all honesty. I could see it going either way. I think Dominic Calvert-Lewin, he'll want to score against his former club, I bet. Everton, I think they're quite hard to predict, to be honest. So I'm going to sit on the fence and go for a 1-1 draw. But this is going to be my highest odds tip of the day. It allows for the 1-1, but it allows for the 2-1 either way, which I could see. The tip is going to be both teams to score and under 3.5 goals at odds of 3, which is absolutely massive. Under 2.5 goals, by the way, definitely I would consider that. I don't know which team's going to win this one, so I'm just going to sit on the fence. But that's going to do it for this video. If you did enjoy it, please do drop a like, subscribe to join us on the road to 60,000 subscribers. I've really appreciated all of your support over the last couple of months, especially where we've been uploading so much content. And like I said, if you want a chance to win $100, then all you have to do is join the Patreon using the link in the description. But that is going to do it from me, and I'll see you in the next video very soon.